συνεχίζουμε το πρόγραμμά μας. Θα ήθελα να καλέσω την κυρία Βελένη, παρακαλώ, στο πόντιουμ.
Καλησπέρα και από μένα. Μήπως μπορεί να μπει το PowerPoint, παρακαλώ. Okay. Risks from natural disasters always have been a major concern and challenge for the world community because they can cause extensive damage to natural and cultural heritage throughout the world. This is particularly so today because many natural disasters are brought about or increased by climate change. Disasters are the consequences of uncontrolled human activity and poor environmental management, bringing damage to heritage monuments inevitably exposed to these dangers. The extreme weather conditions cause drought, fires, flooding from rivers and lakes, and affect the natural and cultural environments in Greece. In 2007, we had devastating forest fires in the area of ancient Olympia. These extensive fires burned more than 1,500,000 hectares in forest and agricultural land in 5 days. Due to this destroy, however, it was possible to find new proposals for the selection of replanting with species that have been there since antiquity and to develop specialized technical firefighting plans. Finally, this stop. The archaeological site of Delos. Delos was one of the principal Pan-Hellenic sanctuaries, the location of the island of Delos and the setting in the middle of the Aegean Sea of the site, however, encompass threats and risks for the ruins. All the ancient structures or sculptures located in the open air are exposed to various environmental factors, winds, rising sea and groundwater levels, and many others. The change of sea level comprises another risk effect in the integrity of the structures. The coastal areas of the island of Delos are also rich in submerged Hellenistic archaeological ruins that are partly submerged by the sea. This submersion can be explained by changes in relative sea level. It is now obvious that the constant rise in sea levels due to climate change causes serious threats leading to the loss of archaeological data. The services try to control the phenomenon by adopting methods and solutions that are universally applied in similar cases and are mainly concerned with the optimization of materials and methods of maintenance and protection. The archaeological site of ancient Sife, Aliki in Boeotia, in central Greece, it's the hill over there that has the problem, suffers from rock falls and heavy rains, especially during the winter. In order to deal with the problem on a more permanent basis, the Ministry of Culture and Sports examines measures include the construction of strong retaining walls, as well as of ditches and barriers in successive rows for the containment of the fallen rocks, the anchored reinforcement of the rocky formations, the construction of protective shelters for certain visitors' paths, etc. Without these structures, harming the natural environment of the site. The flooding from rivers and lakes causes damages to natural and cultural environment. The overflow of a stream after heavy rainfall destroyed the entrance of the archaeological site of the Sanctuary of Great Gods of the island of Samothrace, and this is what a disaster happened there. The uncontrolled rise of lakes level, especially after heavy rainfall, covers the fortification of the Spiliot settlement, which is a settlement of Bronze Age in Kastoria of the prefecture of West Macedonia. The interior of the church of Zoodokos Pigi in the castle of Geraki in Laconia, after extreme weather conditions, very heavy rainfall, was flooded, and the wall paintings of 15th century were totally wet. Humans cannot rule nature, but were able to limit the consequences that disastrous natural events have upon us and the nature and human environment. Two examples of human efforts to prevent problems caused by extreme natural events is the steps taken by archaeologists today in the island of Crete. From 2016, the Directorate of Antiquities of Heraklion and 16 organizations from 7 different European countries, Italy, France, Germany, Austria, Portugal, Belgium, and Greece, participate in the Heracles Heritage Resilience Against Climate Events on site. Heracles, it's the name of the project, main objective is to design, validate, and promote responsive systems or relevant solutions for effective resilience against climate change effects, considering as a mandatory premise of a holistic, multidisciplinary approach through the involvement of different expertise and users' industry, scientists, conservators, and social experts, decision and policy makers. The results of the Heracles project will be applied to 2 monuments in Heraklion, the Directorate of Antiquities of Heraklion. It is case studies sites. At the Palace of Knossos, it's the one that we can see in the one picture, and the Venetian fortress Rocca Amare or Coules, but also in the medieval part of the Italian city of Gubbio, Umbria. In general, the most important results of Heracles are: first, the study of innovative material for the conservation and restoration of monuments. Second, the development and implementation of a methodology of the use of analytical techniques to monitor the changes brought about by environmental conditions in the cultural monuments. Third, a platform that collects and integrates a variety of information to provide full and updated knowledge of the conservation status of the monuments to contribute to decision-making to support them against climate change and to propose new solutions for protection and maintenance. The Directorate of Antiquities in Rethymno, this is Heracles. The Directorate of Antiquities now in Rethymno recognizes the importance of the issue of climate change, and in order to respond to the prevention and management of natural disasters in monuments, participates in another project, which name is STORM. It's another research program with 20 partners of 7 countries. The objectives of this project are, first, the study and development of models and technologies for the preservation and protection of cultural heritage against the effects of climate change, and B, the management of emergencies resulting from environmental disasters through the development of innovative technologies and methodologies. STORM will present a comprehensive proposal for the management of monuments aimed at improving the protection, the risk prevention processes through an electronic platform that will provide the necessary services and tools. The online platform, the methodologies and tools developed during the implementation of STORM are tested in 5 different archaeological sites in 5 countries. In Melbourne, United Kingdom, Thermae of Diocletian of Rome in Italy, in Troy, Portugal, Ancient Theatre of Ephesus in Turkey, Old Town and Fortezza Fortress of Rethymnon, Greece. Each one with specific features and characteristics in terms of the potential threats. In Greece, where the archaeological site on a pilot scale are Old Town and Fortezza Fortress of Rethymnon, selected spots are monitored and controlled with new generation sensors to carefully study the needs of the monuments and to improve their methods of protection against natural hazards. The Directorate of Antiquities of Rethymnon proceeded with the installation of detectors at 4 selected points of the Fortezza Fortress walls, which present static problems. These sensors monitor the crack shift, so if changes occur after an earthquake, there is a timely intervention to prevent them from collapsing in case of greater earthquake tension. It is not yet known whether the cracks have been caused by climate change, but certainly the heavy rains intensify the risk of their widening and the subsequent collapse of the monument. At the same time, these points are being monitored by the Institute of Mediterranean Studies of FORTH, a technical partner of the Directorate of Antiquities of Rethymnon in STORM, using the ELT method in order to ascertain the displacement of the soil within the fortress due to natural phenomena and which will directly affect the cracks of the wall. Also, the Geodynamic Institute of the National Observatory of Athens, which is one of the STORM project stakeholders in collaboration with the Directorate of Antiquities of Rethymnon, has placed an accelerator for the continuous monitoring of seismic activity and territorial noise in the area. Finally, 2 methodological stations, one at Fortezza Fortress and the other at the offices of the Directorate in the Old Town of Rethymnon, were installed by the Directorate for the continuous monitoring of meteorological phenomena. The comparative analysis of the data of the above-mentioned sensors, which are uploaded to the program's electronic platform, will be used to control the conservation status of the monuments. Limit values have also been set according to the sensing effect of the sensors, so that in the event of an emergency or exceeding the limit values, the platform will inform the Directorate of Antiquities of Rethymnon to check that point. STORM works for simulation and readiness exercises by the Directorate of Antiquities of Rethymnon. Preparedness exercises and designed based on specific scenarios of natural disasters. The results will assess the level of preparation and effectiveness of the mobilization intervention of the Directorate of Antiquities of Rethymnon and the local authorities, and will be used in the training of their staff. These research programs constitute the foundation stone of our international mobilization against potential danger and our development of the capacity to protect properties. The results of these programs are the outcome of collaboration between the Hellenic Ministry of Culture and Sports and its stakeholders on the crucial question of dealing with risks from man-made as well as natural disasters, which is now common concern of all. In addition to the aforementioned programs, the Hellenic Ministry of Culture is available, ready, and always alert to take part in further projects dealing with climate risk mitigation, and more than 5 other programs already being prepared in Thessaloniki, Pieria, Thessaly, Peloponnese, and Ionian Islands. In addition to the aforementioned programs, They are related to floods due to heavy rainfall, earthquakes, fires, and landslides. Climate change has already had a negative impact on monuments, and the danger of being directly threatened by many monuments and archaeological sites in the near future is more and more visible. The minimum we can do is to plan measures to prevent the phenomena so that we are as ready as possible to deal with possible damage to monuments and archaeological sites. The fact that it is opened up a multidisciplinary debate and that multidisciplinary scientists are working together to tackle climate change, such as it happens in this conference, is a very important, very first step to effectively address new upcoming risks. Thank you very much.
If you have any questions for Mrs. Veleni.
Στη διάθεσή σας. Αχ, έχω και μικρόφωνο και ακούγομαι.
No, it's your ears, that's why.
Ό,τι
So
θέλετε.
no questions. Thank you very much.
Και εγώ σας ευχαριστώ.
We move to the next speaker, Mrs. Koundouri. Please take the podium, please.
Hello, thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure always to speak about climate change and speak to people that care about this and care to do something about this. It's important that we start making explicit actions towards a sustainability transition. And this is what I'm going to talk about. As you can see from there, I'm an economist. So although I always work in interdisciplinary frameworks, my main endeavor, my main contribution is to be able to integrate all other sciences, evaluate the effects of the changes, and produce policy instruments that can work. That is, policy instruments that can incentivize the society to move towards the right direction. You all know what sustainable development is, and you don't need me to introduce you to the concept. I just want to say that in order to be sustainable, we need to be environmentally sustainable, that is, respect the resilience of the resources that we have, the natural heritage, the natural resources. We need to be economically sustainable, that is, adhere to economic principle that marginal cost should equal marginal benefit, the polluter should pay, public goods should be protected, should be managed, and so on. And also, we should be socially sustainable, socially and culturally sustainable. This means that we are managing our society in a way that we have societal justice, equity between generations, but also within one generation, equity between the different layers. When I first started lecturing, and that was in the UK, back in Cambridge, I entered the room and I said, the definition of sustainable development is that we have to have a mode of development that satisfies our needs today without compromising the ability of future generations to satisfy their own needs. You all know this is not correct anymore because we have a climate emergency. We need to urgently, thank you, always helpful. We need to urgently take action towards the sustainability transition. You all know the last IPCC report. We have another 10 to 11 years to really try to avoid irreversible change that will bring floods, droughts, extreme weather events, but also poverty to millions of people. And you all know the Agenda 2030, and you all know that 193 countries have signed that they have committed that they are going to take action in order to achieve the 17 different SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. Is culture mentioned there? Obviously, climate is mentioned. I mean, you all know 13, SDG 13, climate action, and I would say that climate change is an umbrella for all different SDGs because it affects everything. But is culture mentioned? Is culture and heritage mentioned? Well, yes, not in one explicit target, one explicit goal, but it is included in 3 or 4 different targets. It is included in sustainable education. It is included in sustainable buildings. It is included in responsible production and consumption, and it is included in decent work and economic growth. So culture is important for our education and can be used by educated people. It is important, it can be used to create jobs and growth as long as we understand this value and construct projects that conserve this value and integrate it in development plans sustainably and respectfully. Culture is important for our cities. Sustainable cities conserve their culture and use it in ways that are sustainable. Culture is, as I said, important if we want to be responsible producers or consumers. This is a picture of Greece with regards to how well we are doing in terms of achieving the SDGs. And if you look at the SDGs that refer to culture, we are not doing well. Education is going the wrong way. Red means that not only you are not making progress, you are moving away from meeting the target. Sustainable cities is orange, which means you are stagnated. Responsible production and consumption, it's something that is not central to how we function to the extent that we have no data. So we need to do many things. In Greece, I am chairing, together with Professor Andreas Papandreou, who will speak tomorrow, the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, which is a global initiative with headquarters at Columbia University. And what we are trying to do is to communicate the results that have been produced the last so many decades in universities and research centers, any research center, any university within the country and abroad, and communicate these results to business, NGOs, the civil society, that is, policymaking and politicians, so that we achieve a science-driven sustainability transition. It is very difficult to be sustainable because it is a very interdisciplinary question. However, science has been working on it for decades, and there are results. And at my research center that I direct at the university, we have gathered all relevant SDG-related results, and not just papers, but also data sets and models, statistical and mathematicals, and policy briefs, and so on, into open air into a layer of open air. What is open air is the European platform for open access for all Horizon 2020 and other results. So what I'm trying to say is that a lot has been done already, a lot is been going on already, currently, but let's capitalize on all the results we have produced over the decades. Do not replicate, capitalize on what we have, because it's about time we start to implement. We don't have time to waste. We need to implement yesterday, not tomorrow, yesterday. And implementation is challenging. And it does not only need technology. We have the technology. It does not only need funds. We have the funds globally. What is needed is the political will. And the political will will come from the engagement of the stakeholders, because they are the voters that they will incentivize the politicians. SDG Greece, that I'm chairing, has culture as one of its focus areas and has been working on many projects all over the world, including climate change and culture, over the last 20 years. Our usual framework is that we start with a case study. It can be a continent, it can be a country, it can be a region, it can be a region within a country, it can be a municipality, it can be a village. The scale is not the issue. The methodology is the same. You identify the framework of characterization, your natural resources, your cultural resources, your socio-economic resources, your institutional framework, your stakeholders, and then you try to model. We are modelers, we are mathematical modelers, basically. You try to model the interaction between nature, society, and the economy, and you try to model it under the extreme uncertainty and ambiguity that characterizes climate change over time and across space. And then you try to translate these models into empirical model and implement them. Why? Because you want to derive the value of each and every resource and then optimally allocate them between people and time and space. And then one major contribution of the economies is the actual valuation of the different resources: cultural resources, environmental resources, public resources, private, and so on. And then once you have the optimal location, you can do, once you have the values of the benefits, the value of the cost, you can decide using a cost-benefit analysis what is the correct sustainable project that you need to implement. And then you develop tools in the how, in the box that says how. You develop tools that incentivize the implementation of the optimal frame, of the optimal allocation. But you cannot optimize the allocation unless you know the value of the different resources, of your different assets. And assets are, as you know, man-made capital, natural capital, human capital, cultural capital. These are our assets. So we need the value of those. Once we have them, we can really derive sustainable plans. And it is quite important to communicate that cultural heritage, although a public asset, although not traded in any market, although not having an explicit price, it has a value. It has a value to society, and this value is also universal. So we should try to estimate this value, and we should try to monetize it, because unless we monetize it, we cannot talk to policymakers. A policymaker has a budget, and he needs to allocate this budget between different projects. All these projects have to be compared with a common denominator. It can be apples, oranges, cars, or money, but they need to be compared between them and prioritize them. So we need to evaluate cultural resources. And not only cultural, if you look at the case studies on climate change and World Heritage from UNESCO, we can do, and we do, over many decades, valuations of the effects of climate change on glaciers, on the marine environment, on the terrestrial environment, on the archaeological sites, and on historic cities and settlements. So this is something that has been going on, and we've been contributing as economies quite substantially. And let me overemphasize that the value of our cultural heritage, even natural heritage, could be one of the biggest values that belongs to the country, to the society, to the people of Greece, because it has a value for people outside Greece. It has a huge audience. It has millions and billions of people that are willing to pay to preserve it, that are willing to pay to continue to having the Acropolis and the Roman Agora and many very popular sites. So the idea is that we need to identify our different sources of capital, identify the goods and services that derive from them, translate these goods and services into benefits for human well-being, and estimate the value of these assets to humans. And what is important to know is that what we call the total economic value has many elements. It has a use value, that is, I go and visit a museum and I pay a fee, and in a way I use the museum, but it also has an indirect use value, which is I'm willing to pay to preserve whatever is around the Acropolis in order to be able to engage as a consumer or as an interested person into the culture that is supported by the whole monument. And there are option values, willing to pay as an option value, an insurance, in order to be able to conserve the monument in the future when some extreme climate change events might happen. And then there is the other part of value, which is completely non-use value. And this is usually the biggest part of value of any culture or of any natural heritage. Is the value people are willing to pay, and these are people around the world, for continuing the existence of a monument, for being able to bequest, to give this monument to the next generations, and being able to contribute to the conservation of the monument due to the receiver of warm glow satisfaction for being part in the conservation of something of importance. All these values have been estimated and added and put into policy papers, not just technical papers, that supported projects for conservations of museum, natural, cultural monuments, and so on. There are many methods to do that. And there are many methods for aspects of culture that can be marketized, like if you have a museum, you can put an entry fee, or not marketized at all, being completely outside the market, the view to Acropolis, for example. You can identify the value of that as well. I'm not going to go technical. These are interdisciplinary methods that combine psychology, mathematics, statistics, and econometrics, but they are quite robust, and nowadays they are being used a lot for identifying which projects will be carried out by the different governments. Cultural heritage valuation studies are classified according to whether they are focused on single buildings or group buildings or different kinds of monuments or archaeological sites. And usually the evaluation concerns protection from air pollution, restoration, protection for the effects of sea level rise, and so on. Brief presentation of methods. Well, the contingent evaluation method basically allows you to set up questionnaires, provide scenarios about the effects of climate change on a cultural monument, and then ask the respondents using different tools that are guiding their answer towards something sensible, given their budget constraint, in order to get willingness to pay for the different services provided by this cultural monument. The hedonic price analysis is a different method using real estate data that allows you to study the price of different estates and connect a percentage of price with the ability to consume either a use value or a non-use value of an archaeological site. For example, houses around the Acropolis are sold according to many criteria, size, age, whether they have a parking and so on, but also whether they have a good view to the Acropolis. And you can estimate the marginal willingness to pay for that particular angle. Travel costs measure how much you're willing to pay in order to travel and experience in situ a particular cultural site. The methods are quite technical, but the idea is this. And here I give you some results. For example, for the National Museum of Sculpture in Spain, the economic value is 42 million, with 140 visitors per year. Tate Modern, UK, 190 million. Romania, the restoration, the willingness to pay for the restoration of the palace, 8.5. And those were contingent evaluation studies. We have hedonic price and travel cost studies for the Celtic and Romanian ruins in the Netherlands, 33.8 million. Sweden, the concert hall, 1.6. And again, Sweden, the watercolor museum, 5.0. And there are many estimates. These are just estimates for our evaluation of studies. There are many more. So the idea is that you need to provide capacity for the policymakers in order to develop and implement, not just develop, but implement resilient policies for conserving the world heritage, including cultural heritage. And these policies need to be resilient with regards to disaster risk management, and they need to be sustainable with regards to climate change mitigation. Another new angle of our research that we find extremely interesting is the value of underwater antiquities. And there is a lot of work on this as well, not so much on valuation, but there's quite a lot in terms of understanding the universal value of underwater antiquities as well. And I just referred to this one project, which is called Connect, although, as I told you, we run many different projects under UNSDSN, which is hosted at the International Center of Research on the Economy and the Environment that I direct, and the Kapodistrian University of Athens. And the cluster of our institutions also includes Athena Research and Innovation Center, which is the research center in the country under the Ministry of Education, that specializes on information and communication technology, and the integration of this interdisciplinary framework into platforms that are stakeholder usable, stakeholder friendly, and contribute to citizen science. This particular project develops strategies for sustainable management of marine protected areas. It's a consortium in the Balkans, including Albania. I'm happy to see the minister from Albania here. And the major results are interactive maps, integrating cultural, biodiversity, and socioeconomic variables, identification of best practices for monitoring these marine protected areas, and citizen science data uploaded in a platform mobile tablet application for dissemination. Importantly, it focuses on the derivation of the socioeconomic value of ecosystem services from Posidonia Oceania, including the cultural ecosystem services, because Posidonia protects archaeological remains underwater. The methodology that we use is the state-of-the-art methodology. It's more advanced than contingent valuation. It's called choice experiment, and it allows you to derive willingness to pay not just for a holistic scenario of adaptation, protection, and conservation, but the within attributes of this scenario. And the idea is that we are going to use the values of each and different attributes that I'm going to show you now in order to inform policymakers about the trade-offs and synergies between different stakeholder groups within that are interested in the marine protected areas, and identify willingness to pay for entry fees in underwater parks. Our case studies are Karpathos, one in Albania, Samil Bay. Is it good enough? Did I pronounce it good? Okay. Cape Greco in the country I was born, in Cyprus, and Gradina in Bulgaria. And this is one of the many choice maps, choice cards that the sample of people, the representative sample of people in these different areas will be faced with. And they will be faced with many different choice cards. First, we will introduce them into the problem, then we will identify the effects of climate change, and then we are gonna ask them to make choices between 16 different choice cards, one of which will look like this. So the attributes are fish abundance, seawater clarity and quality, cultural benefits, carbon sequestration, the trade-off between beach cleaning and erosion, restrictions to fishing, increases in the touristic product, and voluntary taxes. Choice A gives you different percentages of achievement of quality and quantity of these attributes. Choice B, a bigger achievement, but also includes a voluntary tax of 25 euros and 75 euros respectively. And then you always have the choice of the do nothing scenario and of course pay nothing scenarios. When data collection will be done, we will use these results. We will translate them into arithmetic transposition. We will do statistics on them, and we will have the willingness to pay for the different changes in the 6 attributes we include in the choice cards. And these will be given to policymakers in order to integrate not just in marine protected area policies, but also in policies for sustainable tourism. Tourism that promotes socioeconomic cultural integrity, natural resources conservation, adaptation of cultural heritage to climate change, and community resilience. And I'm not here to say that we have the answers for everything or that our estimates are exact. We all know that climate change is a very uncertain phenomenon. It's not just uncertain, it's ambiguous. We don't know the explicit probabilities of the events. And at the moment, we don't have a consistent theory of how people behave under ambiguity. So our estimates are good estimates given the constraints that we all face with regards to uncertainty and ambiguity and finishing, and also with regards to how you discount over time. Because if you discount, like you discount in communities, any benefit that will come after 50 years becomes zero. So the way you discount long-run projects is crucially different than projects that last for 30 or 50 years. And this is something our central bank should take into account. I've been communicating the results of this research over the last 20 years to many countries, and most of them are engaged to this policy change. They are now included in the green books of the relevant countries, not in Greece yet. Finally, I'm just going to say that I direct the Climate Kick Hub of Greece, and this kick is about accelerating, incubating and accelerating innovations that can support the transition to zero CO2 emissions. And this transition can be also including embracing the effects of climate change on cultural heritage. So any research results, ideas, interesting spin-off startups in these areas, come and talk to us. We've been very successful over the years in attracting funding and accelerating into the market startups. We run many events and many acceleration and incubation programs. Come and speak to us. Thank you for your patience.
Not just a question, it's a remark. And as I understood, you are saying that policymakers should have the will for sharing money for the sustainability. So the will? No, the politics, it's the economy of the vote. They are just thinking about the next elections.
The politicians?
Yes.
Yes, but
so, let me finish. So, in my overview, we are not working as researchers for just knowing or just having a good paper or with good results for the policymakers. We have to work about the education, because when the people will understand that the Acropolis or the environment is most important than the road near their house, this will work. Because the politicians, they are just thinking about their votes. So if we are working about Acropolis and we are working about environment, as academic persons, we should also educate the people to know the importance of this. Thank you.
So very true. One of the main thematic priorities of SDSM, δεν έχω δυνατή φωνή. Έχασα τη δύναμη μου. Πάει, γέρασα. One of the major thematic priorities of SDSN and Climate Kick is education, training, and this does not only refer to people, which is crucial, definitely not just young people, all the people, but you need different instruments for that. And if you go to our sites, we have many different instruments for different groups of the population and different expertise and different areas of expertise and different levels of expertise and education. But I would add, if you allow me, that the other part of the society that needs to be educated, definitely the general public, but also businessmen, and also politicians. Because if I become a politician, which I declare I will never become a politician, I'm not good at it. I need to know something in order to make it the flagship of my campaign. I need to deeply understand it. You spoke so, everybody was looking at you when you spoke because you knew the subject. You worked in the area. And this is something that immediately comes across to the audience. So a politician always focuses his campaign on a function of what people want and find interesting, but also what he knows, what he can really support. I find it, we run training courses for politicians as well, and I find that as soon as they understand, they are much better players, both in the business sector and in the general public. For example, the other day I was in the Vatican talking to businessmen from Statoil, Enel, Eni, Dong Energy, big businesses. And I told them, either you like it or not, the sustainability transition is going to take place because renewables are becoming cheaper than fossil fuel. These are the facts. They understand this. And because they are big companies and they have big research units, they already understood this, and they will start the transition. But we should help all the businessmen and all the interaction between policymaking and politicians and businessmen to be educated, to be aware of all these issues. And if they really understand them, I think they will make them flagship of their campaigns, their interaction with the other agents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will continue tomorrow at 9:10. That's all for today. Thank you for coming.